So fuel systems, what fuel systems are our body actually using, not only when we're walking, talking, blinking, attacking elderly pedestrians, whatever we're doing, but also with our workouts and using those workouts as a catalyst to using certain energy systems or fuel systems throughout the rest of your day. Now there is energy systems within the body, chemical energy systems like ATP, ATP, CP. We're not talking about that. What we're talking about is nutritionally, what is our body utilizing as we're actually conducting our daily lives. Now, alcohol is actually the first fuel system that your body will use. This does not mean that drinking Sambuca pre-workout is a good idea. Alcohol is actually a toxin. It's foreign to the body. We don't have any storage capacity within the body. There's no organ or tissue which can store alcohol. And what that means is not only is alcohol, we're talking about ethyl alcohol here, quite caloric dense. It's 7 calories per gram of molecular weight. But that ethyl alcohol, and they're empty calories, there's no benefit to alcohol calories. It's also swimming usually in a sea of sugars and other nutrients, usually bad ones. So alcohol is absolutely public enemy number one when it comes to how do you have a conscious approach to our nutrition with the context of losing body fat. So it's toxic, okay? We don't have the storage capacity for it in our body. The enzymes which are used, because it's toxic, we can't store it will actually have to convert alcohol to glycogen, being carbohydrate, to actually be stored in the body. What this means is all the enzymes that usually break down carbs, fats and proteins are temporarily ceased because they're so busy trying to deal with this alcohol. So you can almost guarantee that you're going to be storing the other nutrients as fat whilst it struggles to handle the alcohol. So it really, really is crucial to understand how difficult it can be to lose body fat if this is in our bloodstream on a regular basis. And so for that, and for the context of this program, that is why alcohol is absolutely out. Now, if alcohol is out of the equation, there's no alcohol in the body, then we come back to carbs. Now, carbs is our body's preferred fuel source. It's very easy to use and it's very easy to store. But we store all carbohydrate as glycogen, in a little bit in our liver and the rest in our muscle tissue. Our fat is a harder energy system to tap into. That's where the process of fat adaptation or becoming metabolically flexible and going away from being a predominantly carb burner to tapping into that stored body fat is a little bit difficult. Now, so it's a harder fuel system to access consistently, and it's a slower burning fuel system. The absolute last fuel system we ever want to use under any circumstances is protein, because the only way that we can actually utilize protein as an energy system or as a fuel source is to actually break muscle tissue down. That's a bad scenario because you're breaking down the metabolically active tissue that gives you form and function to the body, but it also is what's responsible for keeping our metabolism high. So we want to completely cut out the idea of using protein as a fuel system, and we want to completely cut out the idea of using alcohol as a fuel system. So we're really left with these two. Now, if you think of these as fuel drums, if this carbohydrate fuel drum is full to overflowing, and we've already discussed what happens when we're overflowing, we fill that carb bin up. We can only store that carbohydrate in our liver and muscle glycogen. Let's say for a woman, 500 grams. All carbohydrate consumption over and above what we can store is going to tip over to the fat hotel. Now, this fuel drum can be as big as you like. What we're trying to do with our approach of the blitz-burn balance, and especially in the blitz phase, by reducing the carbs down to nil, is we're depleting this glycogen store. As you're going away from the fuel system your body's been very used to utilizing and tipping into this one, that transition period becoming fat adapted can be a little bit challenging. But once you're here, the fat stores that we have, 1 kilogram of fat, of body fat, has about 9,000 calories. So not only is carbs a fuel system which can lead to accumulated body fat, but our carbohydrate storage capacity compared to fat is incredibly limited. If we've got 500 grams of storage capacity at 4 calories per gram of carbohydrate, we have a maximum of about 2,000, maybe 3,000 calories of potential carb energy. And this is why endurance athletes need to keep on taking, high sugar products mid-race, to constantly refuel and try to fill this relatively limited storage or fuel system back up. And that's why a lot of endurance athletes are actually now looking at becoming fat adapted or using fat as a preferred fuel source, because once they're really good at actually utilizing that fuel source, 1 kilo of fat has maybe 3 to 4 times more energy than whatever their carbohydrate storage capacity was. So this is what we're trying to do. We're trying to deplete this and move into being a constant, slow fat burner. And this is my horrible looking tap, but I want you to think about this idea. Most people think about doing their workout as turning that tap off. If we think that we're burning fat in our workout and we're turning that tap to maximum flow, this is true if you're actually already, tapping into the fat stores properly. But what most people don't think about is what's happening the other 23 hours of the day. The workouts are great, but what we're going to be focused on is how do we have a slow drip to this tap, where obviously at the end of the day there's going to be a whole lot of fuel spent. If we're here and we're using fats well as our preferred fuel source, and we're not interrupting that process with the carbs or alcohol, that slow trickle, 24 hours of day, makes a huge difference. It's probably one of the most misunderstood things about sports nutrition and how to actually burn body fat. And so once you're aware of that, and the fact that not only are your workouts obviously turning the RPMs up in terms of the energy expenditure, but the other 23 hours following that, you're going to have this constant trickle tapping into your stored body fat. Now, that muffin or piece of toast not only is a poor food choice, but you're very consciously aware that you are going to absolutely interrupt this fat burning process, potentially for 3, 4, 5, 6 hours by one piece of toast, which makes overlooking that temptation really easy when you're focused on how many hours of the day can you spend in this fat burning zone. And obviously the same is true for alcohol. So that's a quick little explainer in terms of our body's fuel system. We absolutely don't want to use protein. This is kind of starvation territory down here. We do not want to be using alcohol as a preferred fuel source. And if our intention is to use as much stored body fat as possible, then we're really only limited to these two, and we're trying to deplete the carbohydrate storage as a precursor to tapping into this stored body fat. As we become more metabolically flexible and start reintroducing carbohydrates, we're always just adding a little bit into this carb bin, so we're spending maybe half a day in carb zone and half a day in fat burning zone. Hope that's been a good little explainer in terms of the fuel systems your body will use and how we can consciously focus on using body fat as our preferred energy system for the whole 24 hours of the day.